Shirley here with Sirius Dallas Moon. We have ascendant 19 degrees Gemini, midheaven, 1 degree Pisces, approaching Formula out. And the moon is 18 degrees Libra. Mars has ingressed to the 20th degree, opposing Jupiter. And Mars is conjoining the Sun. Mars opposing Jupiter. So this is the confrontations regarding beliefs. Actually, what I want to talk about is Uranus continuing to Gemini and then to Cancer. Because we think about Uranus Gemini as civil war clock, and rightfully so, but Uranus in Cancer is the people uprising. If the people are polarized in Gemini, they are revolutionary in Cancer. Now, on a general level, basically we're going to have 14 years um, 14 to 16 years of the people uprising, 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius that have already begun, 15 years of Neptune in Aries, and then 15 years of Neptune in Taurus. Now, I want to address something funny. Let's say that there are people that are psychically spying or spying in other technology on people. Now, if they're assigned to do that, they cannot complain about the content of what they're watching. They can uprise against the role that they're assigned to. Okay, for example, if they're, let's say, annoyed with someone, normally if somebody is annoyed with somebody, then they can divorce. Yeah, they don't have to be in the presence of a person that annoys them. But what if they are assigned to be in that position? Then it will be more and more inconvenient to them. For example, how there was decolonization, it became more and more inconvenient to colonize. Such is the nature of Uranus that's going through the process of the people uprising. And there is a technology component. The people that are annoyed with these people because they are watching them and think they have the right to express an opinion of being pissed off by the people that they are watching must first address the fact that they are watching. And they're watching from the public money being funneled to classified projects to surveil the people. So they're basically spending the money of the people and believe they have the legitimacy to complain about the people that they are watching, funded by the job opportunities, the housing, the well-being, the energy of the people. And the Uranus also being the sign of technology, we're gonna have a different type of people uprising. In fact, we already began to see it. What radio frequency issues in an airport in Greece and then in Amsterdam in few consecutive days? Now, a lot has been said about area of the Middle East. I'm watching Krasi video where she mentioned the prophecy regarding the Middle East and talking about 20 years of Rahu time or Dasha. I don't know what would be the sidereal equivalent of Dasha. As basically a period of Rahu. And Rahu is indeed in the 8th house of Israel. Basically, it can mean materializing hidden resources. And the hidden resources for Israel, with Venus in the 10th house in Cancer, is woman leaders. So the materialization, it's also a Rahu return for Israel since Rahu in Taurus. But Dasha of Rahu can be like a Rahu return, which means that Israel is supposed to materialize women leaders. If I think, I don't know what was the time for Israel when Golda Meir was prime minister, and she assembled the welfare, what we call Bituach Leumi, and many people that didn't like her for social democracy, but after 7th of October, they're all in line for Bituach Leumi. So, in that, Israel is also supposed to materialize hidden wealth that has to do with gold. Women, okay, so what I would give for Israel as astrologer, 8th house in a nation chart is the hidden resources. Okay, it's also, let's see, who can support financially the country. And Israel will have to materialize gold. Gold is found in fixed land in Israel. Okay, Taurus, Sun in Taurus, fixed land in Israel that is looking beautiful. So beautiful landscapes where the cows can go, where it's good for cows to go. Okay, because Taurus rules cattle, and land that is prosperous for cattle, we're gonna have gold there in this country because sun is gold. But to uncover the gold, to materialize the gold, Taurus must be appeased. It is beauty, art, women, and sun is leaders. Also, the fact that Venus ruler is in the 10th house shows us that when the energy is corrupted, then we get situation by, for example, we have Libra Prime Minister that everybody complains is controlled by his wife. So I said, well, Libra is ruled by Venus. And his wife is actually Scorpio. But this is because if we don't treat women well, leaders become corrupt, even if they're ruled by women. In fact, the issues she has with cleanliness can denote of trauma to do with that. And yes, unfortunately, she's not the best boss according to her cleaner people. Well, she's probably not the only one, but because she's a first lady, she gets all the attention for those things. With zero the healing. And to materialize gold, we need to basically, with 8th house, allow birth. That is, yes, Venus in Cancer. It can be water birth for women. It's a house of birthing. And it can be that one of these women that give water birth will birth a woman leader. Moon in Leo. So there's a lot of pride, and in both it goes. Pride is not only negative. So, and these women, we need to attune to the women occultism. That is, yes, honoring of the women goddesses. For example, Judaism is not compatible in its current form to State of Israel. This is perhaps also why this country has been so secular, okay, since its foundation. Because in country where 8th house is ruled by Venus, we have to have healthy feminine spirituality and occultism. And births have to be orgasmic. Not that true women have to orgasm, okay? So just don't not in that way. That's not how I mean that. I mean the practice of relaxed arousal has to be there, which means will and consent to Israel is vital for maintaining its gold resources and sovereignty, because the leaders are associated with people and with women. The sun is next to Beta Persei, which means that story of Medusa Gorgon cannot happen in Israel if Israel wants to sustain. What does it mean? If woman is raped, not believed, speaks, and murdered, this basically is a way Israeli is ruined. And we saw the watchers before 7th October were silenced and then kidnapped, and Israel's entire sovereignty was completely violated. But sun here also means that the gold, to materialize the gold, Israel will have to appease Medusa. And this pertains also to level of occultism, but also psychiatry. Because what do they say about people that go through psychosis? They say they are, yes, either schizophrenic, imagining, and so on. The curation for schizophrenic is believe patient, stop all spirit and matter attacks against them, housing first, independent of ability to work, and allow them to be who they are. which here also means artistically express themselves. If Israel is going towards this alignment, Israel will sustain its sovereignty, maybe have women leaders, maybe even matriarchy. Religion will not look the same. Judaism either will not look the same. They will have to denounce part of the scriptures of all the religions, by the way. But if Israel goes for the storyline of Beta per se, something will replace Israel. With Israel is, when we focus on Ra, it means we're also purging the materialization of Ketu. Ketu is second house for Israel. The skill of, when Mars here in Leo, the skill of a psychological war or the war on the image, we're already beginning to see that, yes, Israel, midway into 7 October war, stopped all of its Hasbara because it was proven ineffective. The tactic of sexual psychological war and preserving an image that's of something that isn't that has fallen flat in such drastic way that I don't think most of us Israelis are even able to assess. Again, we're not shown, not only that we are not shown, there's a limit to what we can even look. But it also means skills and what people call autarkic economy. Israel would be more dependent in its economy. And it will need assistance. Although it has gold, to materialize the gold, it would need to prevent Beta per se stories. Now, many nations, not just Israel, have been having the wealth of nation based on human trafficking. Israel's highway to extinction is doing that. And we've seen that time and time and time and time and time and time and time, 7 October time again. What was the missile upon Saturn-Neptune ingress into 7th house of Israel? The Kiryah, which is the most secure place in Israel, was bombed by Iran, showing us that the most secured place is not invulnerable to bombing at war. Don't traffic people. Don't rape. Now, other than the fact that it's an 8-house period of 20 years, which is always challenging. It's dealing with everything Israel has wiped under the rug, probably since its foundation. Child and human trafficking. Israel does have gold. Gold in the soil is fixed soil, but it has golds around the areas that are more susceptible. If they're underground, Beta per se, sacred places, so to speak, to materialize the gold, Israel has to treat it has to abolish the Beta per se related atrocities, which is extortion codes. Okay? And then it can have women leaders, it can have natural water birds, it can have women leaders that are good for the nation, and it can be known by this. The challenge is actually the people. The people, we have Capricorn 4th house, people are traditional, and Saturn in Leo, they are proud of their traditions. It's very difficult for them, as fixed sign Leo, it's very difficult for them to admit that their tradition has been wronging women. And this can so much as extinct Israel's sun in the 8th house, house of death. And all its military Mars, and even Orthodox Saturn, and political Pluto elite or leaders. Also the women of them, by the way. The women leaders in Israel are very not nationalistic per se, but they are more populist. And this is why the populi has to be but honoring of particularly here sacred feminine, and it better per se is zero excuses, zero rape society. And you see, I also am astrologer. Actually, I have Sun conjoining Rahu of Israel. Yes. And the Venus in Taurus conjoining Sedna. A lot of family on Beta per se. And as you can see, I talk about the entire war being about sexual sovereignty. Okay? Because, and they make no excuses even for what Israel swept under the rug. Because otherwise, Israel can go extinct. And I'm not particularly nationalistic. The fact that my birthday is Hey Biyar is okay, we're going to ignore that symbolism for a while. Yes, I'm also half Dutch, so yes, basically it means that I see my sun is where the Rahu of what Israel can materialize, or even is meant to materialize, or die, because it's 8th house. And basically what is cloudy for the entire state of Israel is as clear to me as the sun. Now, with things we've swiped under the rug, particularly when there is a Rahu there, so we haven't materialized okay, but haven't materialized those things, and somebody has a sun there. For example, I had a roommate that had sun in Gemini. I've run Gemini. Then yes, certain part of the things that she's seen and I didn't yet, um, was, for example, around how she goes to the store to buy the food that she needed for gut issues, and she ends up with free groceries that cost probably my entire income for a month of teaching English. Now, it's not like I didn't need to eat like her. Mercury is in my second house of food. I would differently because Aries is inflammation. And so what she crystal clear saw when we go the first time to the supermarket, she said, I have this gut issue, so as roommates we won't be able to share bills because you would go bankrupt. It's true. So yes, where my ability, but I never lived with roommate before, to see that there has to be something that changes with the food so that I will be nourished. Well nourished. Back then she thought that it's only her because she had this gut issue. But for me it's expressed as inflammation and it's almost the same food. And now hopefully I find innovative solutions for that. But she could see crystal clear something that for me was a mystery. Never lived with a roommate, never bought joint food with roommate. So having sun where someone Rahu is basically seeing crystal clear what they came to materialize in respect to their Rahu. It's not their whole chart, or what are they facing as they embark into their Rahu journey. Now, in that context, Uranus will be going through Gemini and Cancer, meaning civil war and people uprising. Probably will have to do with trade and prices of costs of living in Gemini, but in Cancer, this will have to do with cancer-related issues that can have to do with food, fertility, yes, mothers as well. And people will be uprising. By the way, during COVID, where Sedna was next to Beta Persei, Israel was one of the first rat labs of Pfizer. And there was even an Israeli person, head of the WHO, which basically showed us we would see that in 7 October, but 7 October would be the outcome. And it basically meant it had to do with ritual abuse. So Uranus in ninth house of Israel also means that this uprising in Israel, the civil war clock in Israel, will be connected to something global. It can both be kind of like, the Arab Spring, Gen Z revolutions, or a world war. Okay, think about the term global intifada, as we saw. Then here, Uranus Gemini. Again, Israel was founded after a world war, and we have a Uranus return to that. Okay, so was NATO. Now, Mercury is in its home sign, so we don't have to involve another ruler. But then 7 years of that, and then Uranus goes into Cancer, which is basically if I think about the spring of nations, that was Uranus Cancer. All of these have connotations of people uprising. And then, of course, with Leo, it's revolutionary leaders. So these women issues, if I connect what I just said to basically what Crossi Atasio shares, then I see basically that the war in the Middle East is going to be about women's rights. Now, indeed, women's rights are not so much respected in the Middle East, it's not news. But after this war, they will be. How many graves? Think the Great War times. Times New Roman was the first design of alphabet that they used in Word when the program came out. That historical. All those things, also with Uranus Gemini, Pluto is in the third degree, of course, of particularly those things, the alphabet. Will they speak Hebrew? What will be the languages? What technologies will be? How many graves will die between now and orgasmic birthing in the Middle East? Is it going to be like Einstein predicted, that he doesn't know what will be the weapon of the next war, but after that, for sure, it will be stones and there's nothing left, We are at that war where they said is the war that after which is nothing left. So he knows because he invented the weapon. Nothing like a moon on toxic degree Venus to talk about these things. But it's about to progress to the 19th degree, I guess. Yes, as we speak. Again, 20 years, we are in 2026. Now, the 20 years, I think, are not beginning with the changing of regime in Russia. Now, of course, Krasya Tassio is associated to the people that quite. And by the way, I have really been seeing Bulgaria a lot. I don't know why. She said Bulgaria will be a center for spiritual people. So if anybody knows Bulgarian, okay, women-friendly, sexual sovereignty-friendly Bulgarian villages, then maybe I would be a woman in the mountains, learning Cyrillic and making prophecies. You know, my moon is also housing, is actually conjoining Sirius, and maybe me and Krusty will be neighbors. I don't know. So, it's not on my Rahu line, but Sirius is definitely conjoining my moon, which is also housing. And the moon is remediation for me, so I would need to see the astrocartography, but other than that, and I don't know Bulgarian. I know to read Cyrillic letters, but I don't know Bulgarian. Yes. More things. To say about this. Of course, the spirituality has to align with sacred sexuality, okay, which means honoring the yes, no, and maybe, and sexuality as it would be without trauma. Is there a place on earth that's compatible with that? Until there will be, is war. I don't make the rules. The Egyptians built pyramids to get that gnosis. Then they said it's only for the elite, but they still had to let go of the slaves that built the pyramids. Now, what is the opportunities of this supposed war of the Middle East? Why am I saying supposed war? Because if the war is about not having rape, why do we even need to fight? I'm not talking about women only, okay? Even the Beta Persei. And when Uranus was crossing Beta Persei, there was a stellium. It was Venus, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, okay? All of the planets, except for Saturn, fortunately, so we didn't have dead camps yet. So, and I saw the boys that were raped and were forced to rape. The way Beta Persei monasteries would use to sacrifice children. Which means people were not really venerating Medusa Gorgon, but they also sacrificed children. Why we have patriarchy? Because for the goddess of fertility, they also began to sacrifice children. And then what happens in such times? When people commit atrocities in the name of a god, that god perishes. It's not that god perishes, it's that, for example, I ran into a person who was channeling, and he was abused by a lady that was therapist. Okay? And the way he was abused, he was told to take his aggression sexually on her. So she basically violated the boundaries with him. And again, it's not about shame, blame, it was the result of the situation. And then he began to offer all kinds of services to women as supposedly healing the sexuality. And I explained to him about when the people that went to sexual trauma, actually the issues of boundaries and so on and so forth is something that's very sensitive. So even if they have a no, they would need to work with themselves to be able to express that to a partner, because they would say no as they were raped. Then he was working with goddess Isis, and I have Moon Sirius, which is associated with Isis. Then he comes to me with anagram of Yud 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 or Yud Yud, which is breaking any toxic relations. And I consecrated that anagram and gifted that to me. Anagram or I don't know. And he says to me, because Isis came to me and told me that what I was doing as praxis, never to do in her name, and basically, if I do this in her name, she will not work with me anymore. And he stopped basically offering services that were under the guise of sexual healing, harming people, and went himself to therapy. I don't know what went then. But this is just one example how when people work with deities, then the deities themselves, they refuse to be having atrocities done in the name of these deities. Okay, because Isis did give the 6-9 tantric embodiment and so on, but it's not for having sex with another before one has embodied that within themselves. And by the way, something that I know almost so young that I don't even know how come I knew that. So more on materializing the gold. There may be gold rush to the region of Israel. I'm told there already is, but I'm not aware of those things. So, because Saturn is in Leo, which rules gold, Israel may try to confiscate the gold. Or other countries may try to confiscate the gold. And again, because of this stellium in Leo, I predict this will be a very big crisis for Israel. It's a fixed sign, it's a proud sign. And even though Sun in Taurus, the people can be fixed in their ways. Even I was told rabbinical people, rabbis, that they believe circumcision is, like I say, is not needed, it's not Jewish even. That was the whole, God turns to Abraham, and then Abraham insists on some sign that reminds him of the pagan self-mutilation contracts that people like the Mayas and the Aztecs, for example, had. And they said that they are afraid that the people will not accept that they don't need to do any type of ritual, definitely not harming the genitals, to connect with God. Now, this ritual on the genitals was supposed to harm the sexual pleasure. So we see how this type of divinity is working against the gnosis of Beta per se. And Venus in Cancer means also the women leaders become aware of that for a good union needs to have emotional needs met and emotional connection to the heart, which again brings us to that sun in the 8th house. As you can see, I'm an astrologer broadcasting from Israel and also woman, and I have this gnosis in this location. In Netherlands, for example, I had a lot of other gnosises. I was shown natural birth For first time, I saw images of women kneeling to have natural birth. And most births are natural in Netherlands. Again, Jupiter was there. It was before Saturn, before all these things. I was shown that there would be such a lot of war refugees, and it would be better to not have documents. I don't know why, but they said would not have documents is organized crime and so on. So and yes, that is something that is, yes, is strange to me, but many times these things unfold, and it was before the war in Ukraine. I think maybe people that don't have documents, they're like, they see them as the real refugees, and people that did have documents, they see them an immigrant. I don't know. Like, it can be some, I don't know. And again, I'm not saying it's good to not have documents. It's very important. And I was shown the people that pick up that there's going to be something to do with revolution, with Uranus and Taurus, with the trash. Yes. I wasn't shown farmers, but if I think about like France, where they throw the manure of the cows. But I saw that the people that are supposed to pick up the trash will not, would either leave it in the street or some. And this has to do with the people that have to pick dead bodies from the river or from the canal. Yes, I'm not saying these things will happen at many timelines, and there are, okay, but those were the possible timelines then. Here, I have noticed particularly about the topic of sexual sovereignty and graves, anonymous graves, but in all the world, I think in all the world, anonymous graves, like the Great War, when they had anonymous graves. Okay, and this is over topic of sexual sovereignty, of the yes, no, and maybe, and indeed, better per se, where Israel's sun is, brings dead bodies upon dead bodies, when there are basically rapist societies. It's also to do with occultism, and indeed, Israel has been accused in using dark occultism in its war with Iran. That was the allegation, yes. So, dark occultism against women, and the use of dark occultism rituals that are violating, let's say, spirit and matter sexual sovereignty, and here can be spiritual as well, make Israel extinct. And the way it can make it extinct is basically the gold is confiscated. The gold reserves in the country, and it's looted for the gold. And the minerals, of course, in a body of water, that is well known. Uranus in Israel's chart is in Gemini, air sign. Mercury is home sign. Bodies of water that are more like an ocean, the closest being um, perhaps the Suez Canal and Middle East, the Mediterranean Sea, not Middle East, Mediterranean Sea. They can be of with Jupiter in the third house, point of enmity between sibling countries, neighboring countries. Okay, which indeed we see is the truth. In fact, Yitzhak Teshuvah wanted Israel to be codependent in its water with the region. But he said it would create peace. But this can only be if sexual sovereignty is honored, because sexual boundary violation, regardless of the gender, is a pollution of the water. And Israel's Venus is indeed in water sign. So it will begin with pollution of the sea. It can be Kinneret, or Galilee Sea, or Dead Sea. Also minerals of gold. There is gold in those seas. On the shore of the sea, in the sea. Okay, Venus is in the water, and, and Taurus is fixed land. So basically the fixed land in the water, or underwater in those seas. Um, but this gold can be both a blessing and a curse, like Beta per se. It is a blessing to those that honor sexual sovereignty. It is a curse to those who don't. For example, for me, gold is a blessing to my son. I honor sexual sovereignty. It's one of the metals that I was surrounded with because I honor sexual sovereignty. Okay, I don't have a lot of gold. I barely have maybe one thing with gold, but it was used only to protect, basically, in times of spiritual perils that try to violate, the true sexual violence try to violate my personality. Silver, by the way, is good to protect emotional well-being. Israelis women, they need to wear silver and gold, unless they have other indications against it in their chart. But the better sourced, the better. Okay? Is and to materialize, to find the gold, is the gold has alchemical properties, and it protects the personality of women and their emotional safety. Gold that is coming from Israel will have this very important property if it is ethically mined. It doesn't mean that it won't have this property. It's a very intricate topic, okay? The topic of ethically sourced minerals is incredibly intricate, so sometimes it's better to have gold even if it's not ethically sourced to protect, because it's attuning to the frequency of gold, and then one builds their way up to materialize basically the real gold if it's if it's something that they're meant to do. Okay? So how do you get to the gold in Israel? You basically stand for sexual sovereignty, defend from the psychiatric tagging of people who went through any type of ritual and sexual abuse, in spirit and or in matter. This is the deacon of spirit and matter, attuned with the spiritual qualities of gold. Okay? Those who wish to be benefactors of the gold in Israel yes, then those are the things that are going to advance both getting to the goal and benefiting the most. You don't necessarily need a lot, okay? But it's better if you buy something with gold, also buy something with silver. See if there are no other indications in the chart. And gold with peridot stone, because Saturn can be, it can even be that there is peridot stone, jasper stone, because it's Mars. Gold with jasper, gold can be with peridot and with jasper, and also with granite. It can be around Elat, which is granite, or any type of Pluto-related stone. I don't know if there are obsidians in Israel, but I know we have a lot of calcite and quartzes and so on, but and for the people of Israel, it's important to ethically work with these stones, okay, because that can help them attune to the real spirit of the land, and it's very feminine. It's visibly beautiful, but it's also very feminine. The religion that says we don't worship the land, we worship only the sky, they bring China here. Now, nothing necessarily good or bad about China, but if the teaching of the sky that punishes the land loses mandate of the heaven, be it the leaders or the people, is more accessible for China to transform and grow and embody, then China will replace Israel. And China will still have to embody the feminine spirit of the land and not to prefer the masculine over the feminine. As per matriarchy, it can definitely be here. Again, if women are well treated, it will not emasculate men. I'm saying if women are well treated, not if women not well treated, then it would be matriarchy that is emasculating, which is also not good for men and women. Yes, I remember the chart by heart. More things to say. The people uprising. The people uprising with the first 7 years is going to be very, very global. And Mercury, Aldebaran, it can even be that Israel will re-win the land. But this victory should not be celebrated too soon. Because then Moon ingress into Cancer, and Uranus, ingresses into Cancer, and the Israel Moon is in Leo, which will mean revolution and populist leaders, and already then it will go over Israel's Venus, applying to its midheaven. So this would mean like a second Uranus in Taurus for Israel. Uranus has been in Taurus in 2018, and Israel went through attempts to do juristic revolution, 4 or 5 elections, being the lab rat of Pfizer. That would maybe send them better per se.